We begin the day with the war against Iran moving deeper into Lebanon. On Wednesday, Israeli warplanes launched some of the most intense airstrikes in this war, and the target area is widening. No longer just the southern suburbs of Beirut. The core of the Lebanese capital is now also taking hits. Israel says it continues to target sites used by the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah. Lebanese authorities say at least 12 people were killed Wednesday when apartment buildings in several residential neighborhoods were struck.
On Wednesday morning, Israel brought the war to the heart of Beirut. It struck 3 densely populated neighborhoods in the Lebanese capital. In the Bashura area, one building was completely flattened, shocking ordinary people who lived just meters away. The building had been targeted before. Israel called it a facility used by Hezbollah, the Shiite Muslim militant group backed by Iran. Locals disagreed.
There are no fighters here. They're all in the south. Let them fight on the ground, not fight and displace innocent people, elderly people. This area is mixed. It's not just Shiite. There are Sunnis, Druze, Kurds. Israelis are just focused on causing pain. Besides that, they've got nothing to do.
2 other neighborhoods were also struck, including one close to government headquarters and several embassies. Residents said they received no warning and the missiles caught them unawares when they were still in bed.
We were sleeping when we heard the bomb fall on us. We came out and found the street like this, these 2 buildings destroyed. We've been out on the street since 8:30 a.m. with nothing but the clothes on our backs.
Hezbollah's Al-Mana TV station said the director of its political programs and his wife were killed in one of the strikes. Israel's military confirmed striking Beirut and several locations in southern Lebanon. In a statement, the Israel Defense Forces said the strikes targeted Hezbollah facilities in response to dozens of rockets that were launched towards Israeli territory on Tuesday. It said warnings had been issued for some locations. Lebanese authorities say Israeli strikes have now killed more than 900 people since March the 2nd and displaced over 1 million more.
Well, joining me now is Zimmt, director of the Iran and the Shiite Axis program at the Institute for National Security Studies in Tel Aviv. He's also co-editor of the journal Strategic Assessment. Mr. Zimmt, it's good to have you with us. We're now seeing Israeli strikes hitting central Beirut, not just Hezbollah areas. I want to ask you about this. What does that tell us? What does it tell you about Israel's strategy here?
So actually, with the exception of several bridges which were targeted in southern Lebanon, which could be described as state assets, the majority of the targets targeted by Israel since the beginning of the war against Hezbollah were Hezbollah related. And so, again, with the exception of some hitting Iranian personnel in Beirut or Palestinian officials in Beirut, but the majority of the targets were Hezbollah. So I would say that while there are some voices in Israel encouraging to put more pressure on the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah, but at least for now, Israel has mostly targeted Hezbollah targets in Beirut, in the Bekaa Valley, certainly in southern Lebanon, but not state targets.
And you don't think, though, that these strikes, these attacks, could be perceived as an attempt to pressure the Lebanese state?
Not necessarily. I think that there is a realization in Israel that, generally speaking, Israel and the Lebanese government, the current Lebanese government, share the same interest to disarm Hezbollah. Having said that, we should not forget that Israel has tried to convince the Lebanese government and the Lebanese army since the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah in December 2024 to move forward, to break the infrastructures and facilities set up by Hezbollah, not just in South Lebanon, but also in Beirut and other areas in Lebanon. And despite the efforts made by the Lebanese army to do something about that, it was certainly insufficient. And so, as I said, there are those in Israel who believe that more pressure is required.
Are you convinced that Hezbollah is being degraded at the moment?
Hezbollah is certainly being degraded. I think this is not the main question. I think the main question is whether at the end of this war, we will be able to create better strategic circumstances which would allow to put an end to this condition where Hezbollah actually serves as a state within the state. As I said, Israel shares the view that the monopoly over the weapons in Lebanon should be under the Lebanese government's direction. And therefore, even if Hezbollah is degraded, if we don't move forward together with the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah, it's only a matter of time until Israel is going to be forced into further action again.
I want to talk a little bit now about Iran. Here's the Defense Minister, Israel Katz, speaking today. Take a listen.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and I have authorised the IDF to neutralise any senior Iranian official who has been located both intelligence-wise and operationally without the need for additional approval. We'll continue to target and hunt them all.
Mr. Zimmt, Israel says that it has killed another top Iranian official today. That brings the total to 3 key security officials in Iran killed this week. What does this tell you about how deep Israel's intelligence penetration inside Iran really is?
You know, we didn't have to see the recent decapitations of Larijani and the commander of the Basij and the Iranian Minister of Intelligence to understand that Israel enjoys very deep intelligence penetration. We saw that during the first few hours of the war, including the killing of Khamenei. We saw that during the first hours of the 12-day war in June. We actually saw that before, for example, during the Israeli attack and assassination of the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in a compound being used by the Revolutionary Guards in Tehran. What it does mean, and I think this is the main issue, is that it's a clear indication that Israel and the United States, since the beginning of the war, might not pursue the objective of toppling the Iranian regime, because I think everyone realized that it's going to be almost impossible to do that through aerial strikes. But I think it's very clear that Israel wants to undermine and to weaken Iran's political and security establishment, and certainly its security forces and repressive capabilities.
Well, if Israel can keep reaching into the upper ranks of Iran's leadership, as we've been seeing, what does that do to the war, though? Is it going to shorten the war, or is it going to guarantee that we see a longer, more dangerous conflict?
It seems to me that the current obstacle towards the ending the war seems to be the crisis in Hormuz Straits rather than the targets. We will always have more and more targets. As Israeli officials made it very clear, we are still talking about another month or several weeks of campaign in Iran. That's more than enough to continue the Israeli efforts to strike IRGC, Basij, Iranian officials, some infrastructures perhaps. And so the end of the war, which, by the way, will be decided not by Israel, by President Trump, in my view, has to do more with what we will see over the energy sector and the Iranian attempts to block the Hormuz Strait, rather than the question of how far we continue the Israeli efforts when it comes to assets inside Iran.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Mr. Zimmt. If U.S. President Trump were to say this evening that the war is over, mission accomplished, what would that mean for Israel and its goals? I mean, that would leave Israel in the lurch a little bit, wouldn't it?
It will mean that it's going to be more difficult to make sure that, one, the Iranian regime is weakened even further, For example, it's going to be more difficult to make sure that in case of a resumed protest movement in Iran, this time it might be more successful than before. And it also has to do with the Israeli objective of degrading Iran's both nuclear and ballistic missiles capacities in order to make sure that we don't only hit those targets, but also make sure that this time, unlike the 12-day war in June, Iran will not be able to recover and to reconstitute its ballistic missiles capacities as they did after this war.
There are some warnings, even from U.S. officials, about potential Iranian-linked attacks far beyond the Middle East. How real is the risk that this conflict spills into Europe or even into the United States?
I think that the main threat when it comes to Europe and the United States seems to be the potential implementation or using by Iran of terrorist cells and infrastructures in Europe. We've seen that already, and perhaps in the United States. I don't see any scenario in which Iran tries to launch missiles at Europe. We know that the number of Iranian missiles being launched, not just against Israel, but also against the Gulf states and the US forces in the region seems to be very much declined. I think that the use of terrorist infrastructures and capabilities is something which we can certainly see if Iran has the intelligence and the operational capabilities to use them.
I want us to talk about the wider picture for a moment, if we could. Here's Israeli President Isaac Herzog visiting the site of an Iranian missile strike in Israel today. Take a listen to what he said.
We shall overcome because the enemy is getting hit and getting hit very hard. And eventually, when we are getting closer to the moment, the people will rise up, and they will rise up. And I'm convinced we'll see a big change in the Middle East. The price is high, but we are determined, and for certain we'll overcome and win.
So we will overcome. Mr. Zimmt, let me ask you, what does winning look like for Israel at this stage?
Look, I'm not sure about winning. I do know that the ultimate objective of Israel would be to see some kind of regime change in Iran. But as I said before, this is seems to be unrealistic goal, at least as long as the war continues. And therefore, what Israel would like to see at the end of the war is, one, a very much weakened regime, even if we are talking about the same regime, even perhaps more hardliner than we used to have under Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. A weaker regime means a regime which is going to be much less capable of dealing with the major problems and crises it has to deal with, and with less military strategic capabilities which could aim against Israel.
You know, we are seeing some significant political rupture taking place right now in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you heard yesterday a top Trump intelligence official, Joe Kent, he resigned, claiming that the U.S. was pressured into this war by Israel. Do you believe that there was strong arming done to get President Trump on board for this war?
Look, I think that what we see since the beginning of the war is that we on the one hand, we see a very close cooperation between President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu, and of course between the military establishment in two states. However, one should not underestimate the growing criticism inside the United States against this war, mainly due to the economic costs it involves. So we should certainly take into consideration, one, that at some point President Trump might make a decision to stop the war. I don't think it's going to happen in the next few days, but it can certainly come at a certain point. And we should not underestimate the problem we are dealing with, meaning that there is growing criticism inside the United States, both among the Democrats and also the Republicans, against the influence Israel is using in order to make sure that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu join forces against Iran.
Mr. Raz Zimmt, we appreciate your time and fascinating discussion, your analysis into this conflict, which continues. Thank you.
Thank you.